Welcome to Uncover the Human, where every conversation revolves around enhancing all the connections in our lives.
Whether that's with our families, co-workers, or even ourselves.
When we can be our authentic selves, magic happens. This is Alex Cullimore.
And this is Christina Amigoni.
Let's dive in.
Hello, Christina.
Hello.
We are back with a return guest. I think this is time number 3 for Eimear.
I think so, yes, because she did, I'm trying to remember the first one. The second one was imposters. One of the two was imposter syndrome, and then something else, and now choose yourself.
Yes, I know at least 2 of them, and I can't remember which one. It was the first one. It was her first book, and this one is obviously her second book. We got to talk about today. But I know we talked about her first book the first time, and then we have a different one, and now we have a second book.
Yes.
And between all that time, she did what, 4 marathons?
Yes. 3 majors. I can't remember what the fourth one. Oh, Dublin. Dublin is the fourth one. That's not a major. I am now the groupie, and so I keep track of when's the next one. Also, very likely crashing wherever she goes, especially because the next one is London, and after that is going to be Tokyo. I already told my husband, I'm crashing Tokyo for sure, and I'm tempted to crash London.
That's a great reason to go to Tokyo.
Exactly.
And London, frankly.
Yes, and London, yes. And then, Boston, I'm definitely crashing that one. So why I can't skip London. If I'm going to crash Tokyo and Boston, I have to do London.
No, you'll have seen all the majors at that point then.
Yes, yeah.
I think the only other major one I know of is Chicago. That's
Chicago, yes. She did that last year, and she did Berlin this year, a month before New York. So that was ridiculously impressive. I did not crash Chicago or Berlin. I started with New York. But now it's a thing. I already told her. That's a thing now. So just you make sure you expect me to be there.
It sounds so insane, but it does get fun.
Yeah, it's great to be a spectator. That's
it's also
how
fun
I
to do
choose
it.
myself. I choose myself to crash and not run. Crash the marathon, not the body.
It's a great bridge into choosing yourself, which is exactly Eimear's book, Choose Yourself, and kind of the theme she's been on and talks about for a lot of this is to getting better in touch with yourself and using that powerfully and really leaning into it. And Eimear's just always a great storyteller as well as has just incredible content that you want to be closer to. So it's always a pleasure.
Yes. Yeah, it is always a pleasure. Yeah, I read the book in 2 nights. I think I didn't go to sleep because I made the mistake to start reading at 10 p.m. thinking I'll just read a little bit and then continue tomorrow. And I was just so into it that it was 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And I'm I need to actually go to sleep now and stop reading this. And so I don't think it took me more than 2 nights from 10 to 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. until I was done. And it was incredible. It's one of those life-changing books where you read it and you're like, oh my God, that's me. Oh, and that's me again. And that's me again. And so it's very powerful. She has great activities in there, which I haven't done yet. So I'm going to go back and actually do them. I was trying to read as fast, to complete it as fast as possible at the point as an early reader. And it's just very fascinating. But the theme is really nobody's coming to save you. And I love the pre-mortem piece of, when you go look back at your life, it's you're going to feel like you've wasted stuff because you didn't choose what you wanted your life to be. You just kind of hoped it would happen. So it's very powerful.
It's a common problem. Good one to face, hard one to face.
Yes, very hard to face. Yeah, it doesn't make it easier.
I misspelled her name. I remember the first time we did the podcast, but just to help people find the book, I can spell it right this time. I promise.
Yes.
It's Eimear Zone. That's Eimear Zone, and the book is Choose Yourself. And you can find her at all kinds of places, which we talk about later. But this is a very fun conversation with Eimear Zone.
Yes, enjoy.
Hello and welcome back to this episode of Uncover the Human. Today we have a return guest, Eimear Zone. Welcome back to the podcast, Eimear.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Welcome back.
We're excited to have you. Just as a brief overview, we've both been coached by Eimear, I think, at some point. Christina and Eimear went to coaching school together, and now we're just here, chatting again. Do you want to give any more background, Eimear, on things that you've been up to lately? What's life look like?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. So I'm still coaching, and I particularly focus on entrepreneurs, creators, and leaders, and particular interest now in midlife women looking to create regret-proof second chapters. I'm just coming to the end of a 2-year training with Jack Cornfield and Tara Brach in mindfulness meditation. So I sort of graduate from that program. We have our graduation ceremony at the beginning of February. So that's been a really, really rewarding and interesting journey. And I have been weaving meditation and mindfulness and visualization into the work that I do, for many years. And it's just one of these things, right? That you find a modality or you just follow your curiosity and you say, oh, this makes sense. And it just gave me that yes feeling internally. And so I just followed that guide. And yeah, it led me to doing silent retreats and all sorts of things. So it's been a really exciting journey and it continues to unfold since we last were here together.
Mhm. Yeah, lots of stuff. And I know I've been in your one of your first cohorts in the mindfulness meditation piece. And that was
Yeah,
very, very powerful.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fun to just open up and offer more as you begin to learn new modalities and you see how powerful they can be.
Mhm.
And I was focusing in that area of confidence and kind of really coming more into yourself and being braver in your life in professionally and personally. And for me, the mindfulness piece became more and more important because it's really that experiential piece and taking people out of just the thinking
Mhm.
mind and really beginning to get a glimpse of the experience of it and sort of the okayness of trusting in themselves and getting out of the comfort zone. And it just, for me, it was the missing piece for myself.
Mhm.
And we normally pursue the things our curiosity leads us to what we are seeking for ourselves, and then we become
Mhm.
of service to others through that journey. And obviously, I can see it's behind me and it's behind you for people
Oh
who are
yes.
looking at this in video. But I wrote another book since we last spoke,
Yes.
which is called Choose Yourself. And that was a long time in the making, probably a long, long time ago, Christina, when you and I were
Mhm.
we were in coach training together, and I was
Ah.
talking about this idea of another book. And at that point, it was called You Do You.
Mhm. I
And
remember that. We've talked about that.
yeah, so we kind of were building out a structure in a coaching session one time. So I love when just an idea, a flicker of an idea becomes a tangible thing. Um, and that's exciting. And then from the book, just in the last 2 weeks, I
Hmm.
launched a podcast, my own podcast called Girl
Yes.
Choose Yourself. And the second episode of that just came out the other day. So it's all new and explorations and kind of going deeper into my curiosity and what I can offer to others.
Well, it's an excellent journey. What brought to the choose yourself moment? That sounds like that's been a while in the making. What you said that was kind of a curiosity you were following.
I think it was just that fundamental yearning. I think I'm looking now as there's a kind of notice board in front of me, and I have a photograph on it of I'm probably 7 years old. In this photograph, a little school picture of this little girl, and then there's another photograph, and it's of my grandmother. So it's the other stage of life, and I think the choose yourself is really about it's up to you. There
Mhm.
is, I think, a lot of life is, when we're younger, there are people guiding us, supporting us, telling us what to do, and then gently suggesting what we do, and a lot of influence from the external. that guides us. And we want to please people, or it seems like, oh, that's a rewarding career. Somebody else's. I mean, I think when I was choosing my career, I made it. Um, I was at that stage in school, probably like a junior in high school or whatever, the equivalent in Ireland. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I had some conversation. My sister wanted to be a doctor, always wanted to be a doctor. For a while, I thought, oh, I'll be a doctor too. And then I realized I have no interest in being a doctor. I am just saying that because I want to know, and she seems very sure, and maybe I'll just copy her. And in the end, I made the decision to do a business degree because on the basis of fashion, because I decided I would like to wear nice suits. I mean, really, there wasn't a lot of really great career guidance. I thought, yeah, I could just zip around the world in like a suit and look important. I mean, really? So I think choose yourself. My life kind of got disrupted and a little bit of an unusual pathway like 10 years ago when I found myself sort of plucked from the UK where I was living and had been for a long time. And my husband's American and his job, changed to this big opportunity in the States where he's from. And so we ended up moving there and I was like, what the hell am I going to do? Like I went to law school in England, useless here. Now I have three kids who I have to integrate into school again here, so I have very little time again. And like I don't really know how this country really works. And so I was like kind of depressed actually for a while when I got here. I was like, smiling and putting on a good show while I was doing all the things. And then I would sort of put on my workout clothes and think about working out and shower later in the evening, not having worked out. And it it took a while for me to kind of go, okay, right. So it's up to me now in this place. Nothing's going to change. Nobody else is responsible. I spent a bit of time blaming my husband for moving me to a country that was making things a bit awkward for me. And then I realized, oh, that's not very helpful. I mean, I studied law, so I thought I was like, I'm an argumentative person, and God bless my husband. I was going, I can win this argument. It kind of is his fault. Yes, it's entirely his fault. And then I was going, actually, I kind of like him. He doesn't feel that good when I argue with him like that. And actually, it's kind of BS because it doesn't help me either. And so within me was sort of alchemizing, I guess, this idea of choose yourself. You have to do it yourself. And then like nobody's coming to save you. It's me. It's me. And so that really began this journey of experimentation of, well, now what am I going to do? Like I'm 40 something or other, I guess nearly 45 at the time. Um, oh my God, I have to reinvent myself. Oh my God, I have to meet new people. This is all not in my plan. This seems a bit hard. So once I got over telling myself it was hard and kind of annoying, I started following my curiosity and doing stuff I didn't know how to do at all. And I was quite interested in things like, I was quite interested in law. I was quite interested in sort of women's rights and women, in the workforce. I was interested, I had done a bit of kind of research and work in the area of discrimination law when I worked in law in the UK. And so I set up a online business that was kind of a social enterprise it started off just selling t-shirts with sort of resilience or fearless or just simple messages like that. And then selling those online, learning how to do that, learning how to design a website, all these things. And I wanted to give back to a women's charity, and it gave back to the Global Fund for Women. I had done an online course that I found on, I think, Coursera or something, and it was taught by the founder of the Global Fund for Women. And I was going, oh, this is kind of interesting. Maybe I could be of service here. And then I started finding women who were creating products that I could sell on that. So that was like, oh, well, this is interesting. Uh, I'll learn. So I was just learning all the time and doing different things. And ultimately, that wasn't something that I wanted to continue with. It wasn't financially very successful, but I learned a whole heap. Like I was somebody who had never really done anything online. And then I said, oh, maybe I'll design an app. Maybe I'll be a programmer. Because my husband was in IT and I had always thought that's math. I don't love math. And he said, no, Emer, it's language. And you speak several languages. And I was going, it's language.
Yeah.
And I'd heard people say software languages, but I never thought I thought it was a different thing entirely. And I loved languages. So I said, okay. And I found the Code Academy online and I said, I'm going to learn online. And so I did that. And then I said, this is a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I had decided I wasn't that person. And then I did a thing and I proved to myself, it's like, oh, I can kind of program. This is interesting. And then I was in Miami at the time and they had, this new business incubator place. I'm going to go there. I'm going to learn. And then they had this course where you designed an app and there was a prize and it was learning Python or something. And so I go and it was for complete beginners. And so I said, awesome. I sign up. It's 12 weeks. I go the first time and I had a heart attack. Like first of all, these people are not beginners. Like when you ever go somewhere, like you ever gone skiing and they say it's complete beginners. And there's always the false beginners who are in there. And they were going, yeah, when I was in, I don't know, Aspen, those winters. We used to go when I was a kid, but so everybody in this place, I was like, they'd give out a little problem to do and I'd be like plonking along really slowly and methodically, and everybody else would be finished. And I'm going, I thought people were beginners. So it was like highly stressful. And there was also a little sign that everybody else had a Mac and I was the only person with a PC. And I was going, okay, interesting. So I went for the first day. My husband picked me up and he said, so how did it go? Did you love it? And I was going, I survived it and I'm getting my money back. So, it was about like, I was choosing myself to try new things.
Yeah.
And to also say, no, not for me. So I think that has been the journey that has, become, a book. And it was really about looking around and saying, I don't know the answer. I'm not going to sit on my ass until the answer comes to me fully formed, really obvious, and I can be 100% secure in choosing it. I'm going to bet on myself, take risks, go into rooms where I don't know what I'm doing, like the place in the incubator where everybody was, programming much better than me, and it's going to be okay. Like I'm going to go way outside my comfort zone and go, it's Eimear the programmer. I'm going to design an app. And actually, Eimear isn't the app designer, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I met really interesting people in those rooms.
Yeah.
And I just started putting myself in more rooms and going places by myself. I went to, Gabby Bernstein event in New York by myself. I went to Tony Robbins by myself. I went to, I forget her name, a big LA sort of entrepreneur who set up a sort of an event in LA. And I said, I've read her book. I think it was called Girl Boss. She set up Girl Boss.
Oh, okay.
And so
I've heard her.
Yeah, I forget her name. I bought her book for a couple of people.
I can't remember her name.
And she had a first sort of event. And I said, I'm just going to go to that. And I'm going to put myself in the room with people who I find interesting. And in some of those rooms, like I was, there was like a senior section, like with Gabby Bernstein, where like there was a senior section and then there was the very enthusiastic younger generation. And the same in LA. And I'm going, that's okay. That's okay. I'm just going to follow my curiosity and I'm going to be okay. And I just keep doing that stuff.
Yeah. That's super fascinating. It's a constant journey of, choosing yourself and then going for it and finding that community, finding whatever. Like it's the next place with people and it's the next place with people. And what can I get out of that?
And I think with the when I did the social enterprise and I was, writing a lot of blogs and I was talking about inequality and systemic sort of sex discrimination and stuff. And I was going, this is all very bit depressing, talking about how the system is kind of like,
Yeah.
it's like, God, it's a bit
Yeah.
grim. And
Yeah.
I'd look at the statistics as well and I'd say, all right, so like just from the UK law system, which was the one I was most familiar with, it's like, oh, Equal Pay Act, I think it was 1970. Let's look at the data on equal pay in the UK, for example. Oh, look, a little bit of pay disparity. Now let's look at what the estimates are for given the current rate of progress when there will be pay parity. And I'm saying, okay, well, I'm dead and buried by that time. So interesting. What else might I be able to do? And I think that was when I was saying, okay, there's the external system, and I
Mhm.
can play into
Yeah.
that and kind of think that that has control,
Mhm.
or I can decide that the control is an inside job. What can I do,
Mhm.
me, like choosing myself? Like if I just say I am the power in this dynamic, how can I maximize what I can be and do and achieve? Well, then I have to look at what I can have most control over, and that's me. And then when I started looking at, okay, well, what's happening in my head on an emotional level that's stopping me? There's all that external stuff that I might say, well, that's rather inconvenient. But actually,
Mhm.
where am I getting in my own way? And that was how you and I met, Christina, because that
Yeah.
was when I was on the journey
Yeah.
of like coaching. And first of all, I wrote that first book, the little book of good enough, which
Mhm.
was like a long blog post for a while. And then I was saying, well, maybe, and I had the name of that book for a long time
Mm.
because I thought, well, I can't write one of those big grown-up books. I know I'll write a little book because that's, set the bar. Don't set it way up here and you never do anything. If I call it the little book of good enough, and then I found somebody to work with to bring that book to life. And like nobody ever told me I could write a book, that I was a good writer.
Mhm.
I that was just, don't people have to have be anointed by, I don't know, Simon and Schuster or whatever to join that
Yeah.
club of those very, very special sacred sect of the special
Yes.
people who are authors? And then I just started again going into those rooms. I was going, wow, you wrote a book. Wow, you self-published. How'd you go
Mhm.
about that? Huh.
Mhm.
Can you introduce me to that person? Okay. And then creating that book. And I remember the first time like opening it up and kind of physically having a thing and going, oh my God, that was just this idea swimming around in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, who did you think you are? Well, I just created who I am. I now
Mhm.
became this author. And I was going, it's like the first time you go into a room and they say, well, and you say I'm an entrepreneur, or, and you're trying not to laugh. I was, anyways. Like,
Yeah, or like when we were supposed to say I'm a coach after 1 hour in IPEC training.
yeah,
Yes.
it's like just owning these new sort of
Hmm.
labels or identities can be a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like the repetition that you just
Yes.
repeat it enough and then you make it true.
Hmm.
You have to claim the territory. So I claimed the
Yeah.
territory of author. And I think I say in the second book where I was like, then I just ran away from it. They did the publication thing and then I was like, well, can't be talking about myself all the time. That's a little awkward. And isn't that bragging? I think that was the messages when I was like, it's not bragging. Shh. People
Yeah.
don't want to, don't make yourself
Strong
that.
messages. Yep.
Yeah, really strong messages.
Hmm.
And so it was really weird when I got this like email from Amazon before one Christmas and they said, uh, would like to use your book in a promotion that we're doing for the new year or
Hmm.
something. And I was like, all right, Amazon. And they're like, here are the terms and conditions, and we'll set the price. And I'm like, just tell me where to sign. That's fine. And so I just wasn't watching it, and then lots of people were buying that book.
Hmm. It's a great
No
book.
doubt helped by Amazon kind of deciding they like the
Yeah.
title or something.
Yeah.
So it's amazing what can happen when
Hmm.
you just take small steps or get in the habit of taking small steps.
Yes.
And as we say in Ireland, just giving it a lash, giving it a go. The lash.
That sounds very fitting when you're actually thinking about doing a marathon.
I just, yeah,
That's just a self-lashing.
that
Yeah.
is.
Yes. Forgot the fans cheering on. It's just lashing for 26 miles.
Point two.
Point two. I
Point two.
was about to
Because
say point two because you feel them. I wouldn't know.
When you finish 26 and then there's point two left, you feel that point two.
You feel the point two.
you feel the point two and you kind of go,
Yeah.
is that altogether necessary? Or in
I
Europe,
know,
they're all
seriously,
talk-
why couldn't they make it 26?
I don't know.
Oh, actually, I've read this because I was
So-
fascinated by it.
Okay,
I think
good.
it's
Tell
because
us.
it was the distance from Athens to Marathon in Greece. Is that
That
why?
was the original name of the race. It turns out apparently the
Okay.
popularized one, I had to look this up too because I was like, why the hell is this 26.2?
Yeah.
I think it eventually ended up the distance because there was going to be a spectator sport somewhere in England, and so they raced between two towns, and those two towns happened to be, they called it a marathon because that was originally the Greek name,
Okay.
but the distance there because that's where
Okay.
like they had to end on
Okay.
some royal land or some landed gentry land, and so it was 26.2 miles away from where they started, and that became like just the common distance.
That makes a lot of sense.
It makes as much sense as the rest of the
Yeah,
imperial
there's
system of measurement.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
well, it's 42 kilometers, but when people start talking about kilometers, I'm going, I don't speak that language. It's 26.2. And I don't want to see your kilometer markers. Just show me the miles. Show me
Yeah.
the miles.
Oh, it's about 42 kilometers. So there's just mentally, it's way more daunting than 26.
But they do come along quicker. When I did
Yes, that's true.
Germany,
That's true. Yes.
Berlin, and it was like,
Yes.
oh, I'm 10K in, and that felt good. Whereas
Yeah.
better than
Like
6 miles.
6 miles.
Like,
Yes.
I feel over
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So what does it take? And you and I have talked about this, not just because I read the book and I've known you for now almost 6 years. And also, being a guest on your podcast. We've talked about like those moments of like when do you first remember choosing yourself the first time and when have you continuously chosen yourself. But I guess the question is like what does it take to feel that moment? Like where does that moment come from? Where like this is it, this is the moment, and you've mentioned being in Miami and thinking like wow, like I can't even like I'm putting my workout clothes on and thinking I'm gonna work out and then like get in the shower in the evening and I haven't done anything. So getting into that kind of I can't find the blame anywhere else. I've tried to put the blame everywhere and I still don't feel good. So what else comes up when it's that moment where you decide?
I think it comes either in, it's like it opens one, you come into this decision through one of two doors, and one of them is sort of the pain, the pain of the situation, and the other is, the aspiration door. I think I came in through the pain door. Other people come in through, an aspiration door. It's like a deep seeking. I think you can be quite successful on things be okay.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's often, it might take you a little bit longer. Say if I'd become a doctor, for example, and I was making good money there and I was relatively competent and I was getting a lot of external validation, which is very easy to get external validation as a doctor.
Yeah.
You're easing
Oh my
pain,
God, you're a
suffering,
doctor.
yeah, exactly. As well as the social sort of, oh, you're a doctor, So it can keep you in a profession, but you might be drawn to something else, or you get to a certain age and you're going, I got to do more with my time than just this. I get it that this ticks a lot of boxes, but there is this something in me that needs expression. And as we become more aware of our mortality, that becomes more pressing.
Yeah.
And I keep those pictures on my notice board of me as a child and as my grandmother
Mm.
to remind me that it's a brief trip.
Mhm.
It's a brief trip. And I also have a picture of a very dear cousin who tragically died before even 50, who just died in
Mm.
his sleep one night. And I put him there to remind me that it's incredibly precious and we can't take a moment for granted. And that's also from the, that mindfulness meditation training, like
Mhm.
it's now, it's always now.
Yes.
And I was listening to a a brief snippet from a podcast, and it was a very successful, financially successful man. And he was, I guess, a billionaire. And he was saying he does a pre-mortem.
Mm.
He is planning not to have regrets. And I loved the way he called it a pre-mortem. That sort of take myself to this moment. And I talk about it in the book, and we see it many places where people talk about the greatest regrets of the dying, or
Mhm.
even like when you come to the end of a year and you're thinking about what you had planned to do and maybe you didn't do it, and that regret and how it stings. And we regret more what we don't do
Yeah.
than the things that
Yeah.
we do.
Mhm.
And so I think that's, that's the coming to that point. You can be sort of aspirational. Things are going okay. And I kind of want to, it sounds a bit too, I don't quite like the word optimize, although I've used it before, but I want to unfold really into the full expression of my deepest possibility,
Mm.
right? What would that be like to experience? And, maybe I start out in the journey sort of escaping a pain of this isn't working, and I get, deeply unhappy. And then I'm going, nobody's going to do this for me. That
Mhm.
realization, I'm
Mhm.
going to have to take this journey myself. Either way, it doesn't matter which door you come in.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just let's begin.
Yeah.
Let's begin. If you've got a book in you, if you've got whatever your song is, whatever you want to author, whether it's to give birth to a business, to really embody your adventuring spirit and to see places around the
Mhm.
world. I grew up anyway with a very narrow view of what was possible,
Mhm.
even, career wise. And I think it wasn't true when I was experiencing that as a child. There was a lot more. And because of the explosion of technology and how the world has
Yeah.
changed, the real opportunity to reinvent yourself or to claim a new identity or to proactively explore the curiosities that flicker within you.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, and you have to accept that you're going to go into rooms where you don't feel that comfortable, and it was
Mhm.
probably a waste of time.
Yeah.
And you're not it's not going to lead to anything. You have to be prepared for not everything to work out, and to stop
Mhm.
playing it so safe.
Yeah.
And the risk isn't anything really. What's the
Yeah.
risk? You go and, I went and I did my one day of I'm going to be an app developer, and I'm not an app developer. But I might still be sitting on my ass somewhere thinking, oh,
Mhm.
I could have been, or I don't want to be that
Yeah.
person. I could have been an app developer. Now I know for sure
Yeah.
that maybe I could have been, but I would not have enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
But it's fun to bring more playfulness to it, to not
Mhm.
make it so bloody all or nothing. It's not all or nothing. You can try one thing and
Mhm.
not quite work out. You'll learn some skills. That your fuel and your compass needs to be that sense of interest that you have. Like, what are you mostly reading?
Mhm.
What do you enjoy? What lights you up? What's a really great day for you? What was
Mhm.
the best part of last year? What was the most fulfilling experience that you've had in the last week, in the last year, in the last 5 years? What was it? What was the
Yeah.
thing that lit you up when you were a kid? When I track this back for myself, It's really weird. It was like just a little out of kindergarten, learning to write or whatever, and you're writing those short little, maybe 5 sentence pieces of composition. And our composition in school was like your wish. So it was my wish. And I remember clearly, like my best friend was like, I wish I had my own fridge in my bedroom and it would be full of delicious chocolates and cakes and everything, which I thought was, reasonable. And she was a great artist and she, drew this picture of the fridge in her bedroom and the mouth-watering, lovely, cakes falling out of it. And I wrote, I wish I knew what other people were thinking.
Huh.
And I thought, oh, isn't that funny?
That is funny.
I,
At that
I,
age, that is
yeah.
impressive.
And you forget. And I think there are
Mm-hmm.
flickers and signposts. And this is like right here. This is my a school report. You can see how old I am. It's 1977, right? And it says, written work coming along very well, has a flair for writing, which should be encouraged. No memory of that at all until I came across that, several years ago. And I was going, huh,
Interesting.
yeah. And now I've written 2 books.
Yeah.
People see things and there are signs, and they're just not, they're not nourished necessarily. And then you have to come back and you have to pour the water on those seeds. There are seeds there and things within us, and you just don't want to be doing a bloody postmortem on those things, and be like, oh well, I'm too old now. And we were talking, before we hit play about like running and stuff. I used to sprint, do this like 100, 200, 4x100 when I was younger. You're not a distance runner. And I was like, you don't have stamina. Interesting. Never believed I had stamina. And decided to run a marathon when I was coming up to 50. And I have like a wonderful older brother who's got into endurance sports and distance running. And I had done a little bit in the UK before I came over to the States. Like I ran a 10K and I ran a half marathon and nearly died. And I thought, well, this is interesting. This is interesting. Because I was going to lots of classes in the gym and it seemed like I was going, for negative reasons in some ways, sort of to get fit, but really it was to not be fat or to be able to eat lots more pizza and sugary stuff. I didn't have, it was an avoidance rather than something that I was going towards. And so it felt very effortful. Now running feels very effortful, but when I decided to run that marathon to celebrate turning 50, it was in being in a distance running training program was really powerful for me beyond the physical benefits that it brought, because I guess I had already sharpened some areas within me to say, you just keep going, that kind of resilience and persistence. And when you're running, and Alex, you've trained for some endurance events as well, so you know this through that felt experience, is that you're running up the hill and you're going, this sucks. This is a terrible idea. I hate this. I can't breathe. I think, did I just pull a muscle in the back of my calf? Maybe that's like a serious injury. Like you meet yourself in a ridiculous way where your mind is telling you the worst case scenario and how you're going to die, and you make crap decisions. And then you keep going. And then you realize, oh, I feel a bit better. Actually, that was BS. I maybe shouldn't believe everything that I think. Duh. You can say that and then you up and run and you kind of go, it makes sense not to believe everything I think because I wouldn't run to the next lamppost if I did. And then you're suddenly at mile 7. You're going, I'm running 7 miles. Who is this person? Have we met? And it is like you meet yourself. It's like you meet yourself as a person that you didn't recognize yourself to be beforehand. When you're at those higher mileages, and the mile can be just running over a mile. It's personal. And it's the same thing when you look around yourself and you kind of say, oh, I created this business. Like, who?
Yeah.
And you're the only person who gets to decide that that's possible. I always thought that there was more special people who came and invited you to do these things, and you had to kind of wait on the sidelines, more or less, for that invitation that somebody would notice that flicker in you, and they were like all powerful laws. They would say, oh, yes, maybe you should do this thing. And then you realize, TikTok, as time goes on, well, nobody's coming. That either means I'm crap and not capable of any of this stuff, or B, it's up to me. And I choose B, it's up to me.
Yeah. I remember waiting for those people
They never
that would
show
just
up.
anoint me and say, like, you are now ready. You can now be part of it. You can now be
It's
a
your
business
turn.
owner. It's your turn. And here's 3 business partners that are perfectly, how will make you possible to have that.
It's like when you said, Alex, it's your turn.
It didn't work.
It reminds me like Seth Godin's book, which is one that I read years and years ago. It's your turn, and it's always your turn. Or
It's always your turn.
It's always your turn.
Yes. It's always your turn.
It's always your turn. And I think it takes a lot to get past that. And I think once you can get over the initial hurdle and get into experimentation mode, it gets easier because you have to get over the fact that you may be making an utter idiot out of yourself because you will, and other people will see you because now you're stepping into a bigger stage for your life. And I actually just said this on my own podcast this week, where I was telling this story of when I first set up that social enterprise. Lots of people have opinions about you and what you're doing when you start doing things.
Yes.
And it's not all nice. It's not all nice. And I remember once I was back in Dublin and I was in a house of a family member, and they took out their mobile phone and they pulled up my website and they started reading something from it where there was a typo, which meant that I had said something that seemed a bit comical rather than serious, and it had been the opposite of what I'd meant to do, and started laughing at it. And I'm like going, oh, okay, interesting. You didn't send me an email and say, hey, I found a mistake on your website.
Okay. Yeah.
So somebody who's, it's subtle, but it's like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
But hey, I'm just making fun, or don't take it so seriously. So you've got to like harden up a bit, because who you think might be in your corner, not so much. Not so much. And that's why I think it's so important. And you guys know that from your own journeys. I know, of surrounding yourself with people who get you, who are doing the things that you maybe aspire to do, or you just being in the room with people that you admire. A mentor once told me, just stay in the room. And I'm going, I don't think I belong. These people are like way ahead of me. Stay in the room.
Yes.
And so I think sometimes you're in these other rooms and which are growth oriented. And then you find yourself back in a place that doesn't really support your growth. And it's a bit like, ouch. Okay. And so I've learned I don't talk about my stuff in some of those rooms because you're not interested or not particularly supportive, or sort of supportive, but
Out of obligation, but not really, or envy, or
whatever. But
Making
you're
yourself feel better by
and
something,
that's okay.
something. Yeah.
That's okay. Just realizing just because you've been very close to somebody doesn't mean they're going to be your cheerleader.
Hmm.
And that's okay. Go find your people
Yes.
because your people are there, but you need to walk into other rooms to find them. And I think just like if you look around yourself, I bet Alex, when you started training, um, you just started spending more time with people who were training, right? And that made you get better results.
Yeah.
Because if you're not around people who are like when I decided I was going to run a marathon, like my husband doesn't run. There isn't like I was going, this is just me, myself, and I now. I got myself a coach and you know, found a run club that I sort of sporadically went once and said, Jesus Christ, you guys are really fast, and I decided actually I prefer to run by myself until I get decent
Hmm.
sort of fitness level. But you gotta be around the people who are doing the thing that you're doing and even more,
Yeah.
or else you'll just sit down and you'll adapt to your environment. So you got to change your environment. And when you choose yourself, you have to change your environment.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's pretty lonely because you find that, like some people aren't your people anymore, at least not for this part of your journey. You're going to spend less time with them. They're not going to get it. Like I'm 55. I know people who are retired. And I'm going, I don't understand that
I don't
because
either.
because I I don't
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
learn how to play golf. But that's okay. I mean, it's a good
It's
sport,
okay.
but
Yeah.
or you just like I want to create. And I think
Hmm.
one big thing for me this year is noticing, you create a lot more than you consume, whether it's consuming media, consuming, purchasing
Hmm.
stuff. I spoke in the book about these industries of sort of soothe and distract. They can be like I'm online shopping or I'm just doom
Hmm.
scrolling on my phone and 3 hours have gone by, or oh, here's a series on Netflix. Oh, look, there's 40 episodes. How much of my life can, wither away while I'm watching this? And it's like death to your creativity if you lose yourself in consumption. So this year, I'm sort of engaging in this practice of non-consumption in a certain area of my life. So I'm not buying anything in these categories that have taken up a lot of distraction
Hmm.
time and money. And I don't want to
Oh. Oh.
being
How's your internet?
playing with that idea, looking at that and seeing what is it like to accumulate less, to let go of more, and to simplify on that level. And I think I came across a book the other day, and I know I'm going all over the place in this conversation, but
That's how we do it.
That's
how
what
we
this
do it.
is.
Good. And I think it's called Swedish death cleaning or something. Have you heard of
Okay.
it?
No.
That
Okay.
sounds like an incredible band.
Yeah. The branding is
It's
fascinating.
probably not exactly what they call this book, but it's the whole thing where you get to a certain stage in your life, and I'm probably not far off it, if not landed there already, where you plan for your departure.
Hmm.
So you plan on every level from having, your filing system, from your, do I really want to own these things anymore? What kind of job is there going to be for the person who is
Yeah.
cleaning up after I leave?
Hmm.
If I die tomorrow, what kind of state am I leaving things in?
Yeah.
And what kind of burden is that on the person who will have to pick up and deal with this? So they take this really proactive approach to organizing their lives so that when the inevitable happens, that it isn't an additional burden on those who are going to be the support crew, arranging your funeral and sorting out your affairs and all the rest of it. And I thought, bloody hell, that's cool. I just had, sort of a black folder, which is the stuff.
Mm.
If my husband pops his clogs, there's like a black folder with the main stuff in it. And I was going, no, we're not doing this right at all. I need to
Yeah.
read about the Swedish death stuff and get. So I think my not, create more than you consume is just a little flicker in that area. And I have been thinking a lot about as I look around me, and I have three children, two of them in college, one is a junior. And so I'm still have some of those younger people stuff. And I have to hold some of it for them for when they set up their own. They're like, don't throw out that teddy bear that is like the other five teddy bears that I have that I never look at and is in a box in the bottom of a closet because that's important to me. And you have to respect that. But
Yeah.
so I have been looking around going, it'll just be the two of us. And what kind of living situation do we want to be in?
Mhm.
Do we want to be in like a 5-bedroom house for when our kids visit us twice a year?
Yeah.
Or would it,
Yeah.
so I think it's interesting to make those to make
Mhm.
those choices or be thinking about those choices because I think as well that's a big part for me of choosing myself or it's a different direction for it a little bit. It's like I think it can encompass that. It's like I have another thing written on my, I'm gonna have to send you a picture of my notice board. It's
Yes.
written like simplify to amplify. And
Mm.
I think that's a little mantra that I have in anything that I'm doing. When you ever try and write something very succinctly,
Mhm.
and well, I do, and I'm writing, and I'm like, bloody hell, I'm 2 paragraphs in. Say it. Can you say it in a sentence?
Mhm.
And trying to reduce something down to that kernel. And I think when I look at the physical environmental footprint, it's like, well, how much am I consuming? Is that who I want to be? Do I want to leave this big task for anybody else to be
Mhm.
clearing out this stuff? And also, what am I making this thing mean that I'm
Yes.
holding on to?
Yeah.
Like, I will have to admit, my closet is a disaster zone right now. Christina, you would have conniptions. You would be like, stress if you saw it. Like, and I go in sometimes and I go, I
It's
am going
almost
to
as if you know me.
I almost. You get me, Alex, don't you? Like you just like there's areas of your house that you cannot let Christina see. You have to close the drawers, clean the surfaces. We know how to do this. And I go in and I say, this is weighty for me. This is heavy.
It is heavy.
And I'm looking at the things and going, what am I making it mean if I let this go?
Mhm.
I'm making it mean that you made a bad decision buying it. Um, or you thought you were going to fit into this size and you're just not trying hard enough to be the same
Mm.
size you were when you were fecking 19, Emer. I have a pair of jeans in there from when I was 19. I mean, I need to get through that with my therapist, but I was like, get over yourself, love. Apart from the fact that
I
it
think I have
isn't.
one of those too, shockingly enough.
It's not in fashion. Let it go. Um, or then it's like I get to the black pants section and I'm going, okay, I'm afraid to count these. We're into 20 something.
Yeah.
And so there, it's filling something. It's
Yes.
it's more than clothing my body. And so it is, an emotional weight. And I think your environment, I think in the tradition that we've all trained in from coaching, we talk about environmental
Oh
influencers
yeah.
on our energy. And our energy is like, what can we focus on? And the quality of our attention and focus on any project is going to be impacted by these influencers. And one of them is the environmental, physical environmental.
Yeah.
And so, as part of this non big reduction in consumption in 2025 and really being very intentional about how and where I consume and putting my focus on creating and service, I will be looking at sort of my larger environment and letting go of lots of things and really simplifying and feeling that I can amplify how I show up as a creator, how I show up to serve if I simplify many things in my life. And I haven't bought this book yet on the death practice of the Swedish, but I will tell
It
you,
sounded like you did.
ready. But the thing is, with all the books, like if you write and you read, I know you both read a lot, and audiobooks and everything. And so I do have a bad habit of like I'm listening to two audio books at the moment and I'm reading too. So I can't. I have to
Simplify to amplify.
I cannot bring this other, although I'm so intrigued. I know that I can just read these other books, clean out my closet, and then get the book. And then that'll be probably very good timing.
I feel like the Swedish death cleaning system needs a good ABBA song to really sail it away.
Thinking about my ABBA repertoire now.
I know, that's what I'm thinking.
We'll tell a
The one
funny
between
ABBA.
money,
Yes,
money, 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 and
exactly. Money,
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 and something.
money.
I don't know.
Must be funny. I remember just a tiny
Clutter,
ABBA.
must be funny.
I was a big ABBA fan when I was in college. You couldn't tell anybody that. You could like that was so uncool. And then you would go, I remember once going to like a party, like a house party, and then suddenly ABBA comes on and you're just like, oh, I'm not going to acknowledge this because that's, and you look around and then suddenly it was like, there was like these closet ABBA fans. It was a safe space. And I was like, it's okay.
Yeah.
The 80s wasn't cool to like ABBA.
No, it's not. Some people may think that it's not cool now.
It's cool.
It's cool.
It is
It's
cool.
definitely
It
cool.
is cool to like ABBA.
I never thought it wasn't. My parents were into ABBA, and we listened to so much of it. I know too much of it now.
There you go.
So looking back, and this is a callback to a little bit ago, but you talked about like you see through line. What's the through line you've seen kind of through yourself, and what does that tell you about what's next?
I think the through line, like coming from that little I wish composition from that very young girl, is to understand human nature on a deeper level. And I think that through that, to be of service to others. I think going forward, where I see that leading is from my own personal journey, I'm leaning definitely more into my journey with mindfulness meditation. And I have been on a number of silent retreats, and I find that that's a beautiful gift that I give myself. And it also helps me be a better teacher and a better coach. And in anything that I create, it's infused with that. So I feel that what's coming next is sort of unfolding naturally from that. The book came and I was like, I'm just going to do this book. This really feels right. And it really reflects how I like to support people because I like a little bit of plan. I like to know where I'm going. I'm a planner. So it's kind of like a bit of a map. It's like a journey. And I love to read and I've read a lot and I couldn't tell you what's in any of like a lot of the books that I've read because I remember them for a bit. And actually I've like got notebooks and notebooks of book notes from the years because I'm like, oh, I really want to remember that. And I go back to the notes, but rarely the book. So I wanted to write a book that was really practical, that you would feel, I wanted you to do the work rather than to read it and go, oh, that was kind of interesting. Those are useful ideas. And then you move on to the next one. So like I literally say at the end of every chapter, remember this.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then do this thing, do this exercise, do it now. Actually, just stop listening to this book or stop reading this book. And imagine that I'm looking over your shoulder and just do the thing. Because that's how I sort of coach too. I know some people, it depends, different coaches are going to suit different people. And I think what we most want is somebody to make us do the thing we know we can do
And
inside
we're
us.
procrastinating and not doing.
Yeah. So I'm a kind of get up off your ass,
Yes.
do the thing. Why are you not
Yeah.
doing the thing?
Yeah.
And some coaches are nice and gentle. And I remember in the training, we're both in the same training, the answer is within us all, and allow the client to let it unfold and everything. And I'm going, do you know what? I don't think that the people who are hiring me to, get into one session after the other where they're trying to build up the courage to do the thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm like really on them, do the thing. Like getting them to look in the mirror and say, it's the thing. You've said it's the thing.
Yeah.
And we have a bravery issue here. And you know how to cure a bravery issue? Do the thing.
Do the thing. Yes.
And I'm the person who's
And
going
the
to call you.
confidence issue. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Confidence comes after you do something, not before you want to do something.
Exactly. So I think I wrote the book the way I coach and the way I help people. And yeah, the mindfulness meditation thing can seem a little bit strange for somebody who's so do the thing. But but I blend it in
First, sit in
nicely.
silence and figure out what your head is telling you and believe in yourself.
Well, there's and that's true. It's like accessing the thing.
It is.
Like there's
It's
too much
accessing.
going on in the head, kind of thinking yourself, because the voices that are in your head are not always yours.
No,
They're echoes of like you don't have any stamina,
Yeah.
or whatever the other story is. They're echoes of other people's.
You're not intelligent enough. You should never stand up in a room and speak to people.
No, they'll laugh.
Yes. Yeah.
Stay in the background. It's safer. All of those things. Or, there was lots of messaging from my like people who were incredibly successful or multimillionaires. They must have come by that dishonestly. They're not good people.
Yeah.
They don't treat people well. Just all of the nonsense.
Yeah.
So I think that's the big piece that getting silent and going within really helps you with, because then you begin to, again, it's kind of simplified to amplify. You bring the attention really in here deeply. You go into your body. You connect into that voice that you so often have ignored, or it's only been a whisper. And we know that people talk about it, right? Steven Spielberg talks about inspiration being the whisper. You got to be listening to the whispers. And it really helps you to tune into that intuition. And that's where the answer is. So I can't be sitting in a coaching session with you where we're in our heads and we're talking about, and what do you think? Sometimes I'm going to shit what you think. I want you to shut up and then close your eyes.
Yes.
And I want you to listen to the voice, not the, because this chatter, like you need to talk less and listen. And then when you speak, you're scared for people who I coach now, Christina, right?
No, they need it. I'm not scared at all. I'm like, please do it more.
And then when you do speak, it's almost like a voice that hasn't been heard in a long time. And I think you have to create the safety for somebody to vocalize that voice, because that voice will have been belittled before. And somebody will say, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? You can't. You'd have to go to college for 5 years to do that. You've already got a degree in what? That voice has to be allowed space in a really almost like sacred space. And I think that's why that mindfulness meditation training really helps me to serve people, to create that self-trust on a whole other level that takes it way out of the intellectual. And it is that deep knowing. And when you contact that, it's a lot easier to choose yourself from that place because it resonates. You feel it, in every fiber of your being, like, I'm really scared that this is true. And sometimes it's like, shit, Eimear, I wish you hadn't heard me say that, because now you're going to make me do the thing. But, there's no rush either. You don't have to beat yourself up over it. It takes a while to let it sink in and to grow into it. But it's kind of exciting to think that you could access it.
Yeah. Well, what's fascinating is when I have, as I keep learning to listen to that voice, with the more you go into there and you give it more power, you give it more energy, becomes louder. When the other voices, the legacy voices come in and they're like, oh, see, that's about you. You're not good enough. And that's a rejection. And then it's because of that. Like, kind of like listen to that. You're like, nah, I don't believe it. It's just an old thing there. And you're like, as soon as you start thinking about it, you're like, nah, sorry. Go back to where you came from. You don't belong here anymore. I don't believe you.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
I don't
I
believe
don't
you.
believe
Yeah.
yeah. Mm, juicy stuff.
I know. I know.
I found a fun new voice recently that so when you hear that whisper of the things that you want to do or accomplish, and then it comes in and says you already knew that and you didn't do it.
Yeah,
That's a fun one.
that is a fun one. Yes.
You like do they have that here, like the Mr. Men books? Do you have those?
I,
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's like this series of books that every kid in the UK and probably Ireland too would know from their early reading years. And the Mr. Men are little Miss, Mr. Grumpy or Mr. Happy, Mr. Ambitious, Mr. whatever. They're all different sort of characteristics and qualities, and they have their own story. And then they brought in the Little Miss books as well. So I tend to, whenever I hear the voices, I just call them like one of the Mr. Men or the Little Miss. So, and I will have like, I remember when I was on the silent retreat the last time, and I thought, I'm doing so well here. I'm really quiet. I'm really connected. It's going so well. And I was like, they say the whole purpose or the whole objective of meditator is for the meditator to dissolve, right? So I'm in the silence. It's going very well. And you go and you talk to the teachers. And I said, I thought it was going so well. And it was, so concentrated, so centered, so quiet. And I said, and then I heard it. I said, it was like, you're doing so well. Look at you. You're really such a good meditator. It's so quiet in here. You're not distracted. And I was going, who's that bitch? And I was going, and I was like, oh, it's Little Miss Better Than. And I like gave her a name. And I was going, I thought it was, and I was striving, in meditation. I was like, ooh, you're so good. And it just came out of the quiet, Little Miss Better Than. And I was going, oh, that one just showing up. So I enjoy just giving them these names and then
good
it's
idea.
like that shorthand, like,
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
put them in their place.
Yeah. So I know we could make this podcast episode as long as a marathon takes to run. And we wouldn't feel it. It would be the people listening to while they're running. But we should probably plan that ahead of time to actually take how many hours this could take. So for now, where can people find you?
I am most active on Instagram, which is at Eimear Zone Coach. You can find my books on Amazon. And my website is my name, eimearzone.com.
Excellent. And we've asked you this before, and you are in our intro, actually. You were one of the people that defined authenticity before the podcast even existed. Talk about choosing ourselves for that one. So what is your definition of authenticity? 6 years later, 5 years later. I don't even know how long the podcast has been around. 4 years later.
Sometime.
Sometime.
I can't remember what I said, but here's what's alive and true right in this moment. Authenticity is living into the full expression of who I am and expressing myself bravely from that place.
Love it.
That's what's true right now. Yeah.
That is
Good
wonderful.
definition.
Yes. I think it's similar to what you said 4 years ago, and it has evolved. It's the next level.
Mm.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Been
so
a
much for sharing.
blast.
Yes. We'll have to do it again. And I have to go listen to your second episode. I heard the first one as soon as it came out. So, and I've read the book. And because I was reading it as fast as I could, because I couldn't put it down, I did not stop and do the exercises. So I actually have to go back and do the exercises.
I may
So-
follow up.
Emer
I know.
suggested sitting over
And
your
now I've
shoulder
said
was
it
not
out loud
there.
to Eimear. So I'm going to get a text message every single morning.
So
Asking me,
dangerous.
did you do the thing?
Did you do the thing?
Did you do the thing?
Emer's catchphrase. Did you do the thing? Did you? Or did you really?
Did
Show
you really
me.
do the thing? Oh, thank you, Eimear.
Thank
Thank
Emer.
you. Thanks,
Thank you
Alex.
everyone for listening.
And thanks, everybody, for listening.